From simulated reality to the screen that cannot be filmed, the room you are sitting in does not exist the way you think it does. Not philosophically, neurologically. There is a 100 millisecond gap between the moment light enters your retina and the moment you become consciously aware of what you are seeing. 1/10 of a second. In that gap, your brain is not passively receiving information. It is building a model, a predictive rendering, generated from prior experience, weighted by expectation, corrected by error signals, filtered through the current threat assessment state of your nervous system. What you see is not what is there. It is what your brain calculates is probably there, based on everything that has ever been there before. You are watching a simulation that is 1/10 of a second old. You are permanently, structurally, inescapably behind your own experience. High-energy visible light, the blue spectrum emission of phones, laptops, and monitors, bleaches rhodopsin, the photopigment in your rod cells that enables low-light sensitivity and spatial depth perception. The specific frequency of light you absorb for an average of 7 hours per day is chemically degrading the receptors that allow you to perceive three-dimensional space. Rhodopsin regenerates overnight if you sleep in darkness, but cumulative daily bleaching without recovery progressively reduces the peak rhodopsin concentration your retinas can maintain. Your eyes are being optimized by use pattern for two-dimensional flat screens. They are being de-optimized for the world. Depth perception requires stereopsis, the visual cortex comparing the slightly different images from your two eyes, computing the parallax difference to calculate the z-axis. This takes significant neural processing. Screens present identical images to both eyes. There is no parallax to compute. The visual cortex, deprived of the data that would require z-axis computation, reduces its allocation of resources to that function. The circuitry atrophies from disuse. You are a three-dimensional organism being systematically flattened into a two-dimensional information stream. Feel the specific quality of your visual field right now. Not pain, the absence of something. The compressed, slightly glazed quality behind the eyes when you try to sense the depth of the room. That compression is not tiredness, it is a deleted dimension. There is a region in your visual field where the optic nerve exits the retina, the optic disc, and there are no photoreceptors there. This creates a blind spot, an area of genuine visual absence in every eye. You do not notice it because your brain fills it in. The visual synaptic cortex, encountering the gap in information, generates plausible content based on the surrounding data and presents the completed image to consciousness. You have always been seeing a partially confabulated world. The brain has always been writing fiction in the margins of perception and presenting the result as reality. This is not a flaw in the system. This is the system. Every perception you have ever had has been a model, not a transcript. The warmth in a cup of coffee, that is not the temperature itself, it is the firing of thermoreceptors, converted to electrical signals, routed through the thalamus, interpreted by the somatosensory cortex, presented to consciousness as a quale. The experience of warmth is not in the cup, it was never in the cup, it is in the rendering engine. The infinite scroll is a Skinner box. B.F. Skinner's variable ratio reinforcement schedule, the condition under which organisms show the highest rates of behavior and the greatest resistance to extinction, is reward delivered at unpredictable intervals, not fixed intervals, variable ones. The uncertainty of when the next reward will arrive keeps the seeking reflex engaged indefinitely. Slot machines use variable ratio schedules. So does the infinite scroll. The next post might be interesting. The next notification might matter. The dopamine system fires not on reward delivery, but on reward prediction. The scroll is a machine for generating continuous prediction. You are the prediction. The engagement metric is the payout. The system does not want to satisfy you. A satisfied organism stops seeking. 33 trillion operations per second are running on the other side of your screen, building a model of your behavioral response surface, every hesitation, every return visit, every duration of gaze, generating a continuously updated prediction of what content will keep you engaged for the next 30 seconds. The algorithm does not know who you are. It knows your behavioral fingerprint. It is not targeting your interests. It is targeting your vulnerabilities. The dopamine circuit, the threat detection circuit, the social belonging circuit. These are the levers, and the algorithm has mapped where they are in you specifically, and it pulls them in sequence, thousands of times per hour, with no interest in your flourishing and perfect interest in your continued presence. You are not a user. You are a data point generating engine, running on organic hardware, powering a prediction market. Words are biological information viruses. They enter through the auditory or visual cortex, replicate as neural patterns, and spread between organisms by triggering the same neural patterns in the recipient that they encode in the sender. But information saturation is real. When a word is repeated until all signal-to-noise ratio is exhausted, love, freedom, truth, you, I, the neural pattern it activates becomes decoupled from the referent it was supposed to point at. The word fires, but the pointing function degrades. This is semantic satiation, measurable, studied, reproducible. The information age is its industrial implementation. 12 billion words consumed per person per day. At some threshold of overload, the dictionary dissolves into thermal noise. Words still occur, meaning stops landing. Feel the specific quality of reading the word meaning just now. Notice whether it landed or slid. Notice whether the neural machinery still routes the symbol to the thing. Now, here is what the simulation does not contain. The awareness that is right now watching the simulation is not part of the rendering. The consciousness that is noticing the holographic deletion, the Rhodopsin erosion, the algorithmic leash, that noticing is not a perception. It cannot be. Every perception is a model. The model is built. Models are built by something. Models appear in something. What they appear in is not itself a model. You cannot see consciousness with your eyes because consciousness is not a visual object. It is what sees. You cannot find it through introspection because introspection is a mental process, and consciousness is what mental processes appear in. You cannot capture it with a word because words are information patterns, and consciousness is what information patterns are processed in. The screen cannot film the cinema. This is not mysticism. This is the structure of the problem. Every tool you have for investigating the world is inside the world. The one thing that cannot be inside the world is the observer of the world. Rest in that for a moment with some precision. Right now, you are aware. That is undeniable. You cannot doubt the awareness because the doubting is itself a form of awareness. Now, is that awareness a perception? Is it a model your brain built, or is it what models appear in? There is a what models appear in. Priorness to awareness that is the hardest thing to point at and the simplest thing to find. It is here before you look. It doesn't arrive when you investigate it. It is not the result of an investigation. It is what makes investigation possible. The Viveka describes the Atman as the Darka, the pure seer, the witness that is not itself seen, not the eye, not the optic nerve, not the visual cortex, not the rendered model of the room, but the awareness in which the entire chain, photon, receptor, signal, model, experience, appears. That awareness has no depth to delete. It has no rhodopsin to bleach. It cannot be fed into a variable ratio schedule because it was not seeking in the first place. The algorithm cannot build a model of it because it cannot be measured as a behavioral fingerprint. It leaves no trace because it is the space in which traces appear. The scroll keeps scrolling. The algorithm keeps adjusting. The semantic heat death continues its slow, irreversible progress. And the awareness that has watched all of it, that watched the first word you ever learned and has been present for every word since, unchanged by the number of words, unbattered by the information volume, not a single bit closer to exhaustion, that awareness has not been touched by any of it. It was there before the first screen. It will be there after the last one. It is the terminal silence that remains when the feed finally goes dark. Not absence, fullness. The Para-Vak, the supreme word. What speaks before speech. What sees before seeing. Present, clear, unmeasured, free,